What's up, y'all? Coach Cam from the HTL crew back again. We are here with part 2 and 3, or part 3 and 4, I guess, because Will did part 2. Part 3 and 4 of our NFL preview for the season. So today and tomorrow, I'm going to cover the AFC North, and Will is going to cover the NFC North. Next week, probably do the Souths. I'll do the AFC, and he'll do the NFC, and then it'll be the West to cap it off. We should be able to get done right before the season starts. Will's might come out like the day of Thursday Night Football, but that's featuring two NFC East teams, so it shouldn't get in the way of anything. Like, you're not going to miss anything. Like, everything will be out in time before all the teams start playing. So should keep in good pace, and we should be on pace with the start of the season. Might try to put something out for college football as well, because we've got week 0 coming up. More on that later. Let's go ahead and dive into the AFC North. I saw Will's like layout for how he did it, and I was like, dang it, dude, that was a really good job. So I asked him to share it with me so I could like do that too. And so I'm gonna do that as well. And I'll put it in slideshow form. There you go. Cool. All right, so I'm on the wrong one, although that's all right. So let me go back. I gave away a little bit, but that's fine. This one isn't. There's not many surprises for the AFC North. We'll start with last place and go forward. You might have seen the order, but I don't think I left little to the imagine. Like there's no like crazy like the Patriots from last week. There's none of that in this one. So what you see is what you get here. Start with the Cleveland Browns. This is my prediction for the last place team in both the AFC North and all of football. I think this is going to be the worst team in the league. Pretty confident when I say that. Last year was an absolute dumpster fire, and I didn't think it could be like worse, and I don't know if it is. I don't know if it is worse. It's like just as bad. That's probably where I'm at. It's like just as bad. Um, I would say you start with the QB room, and it's like Joe Flacco was just named starting QB over Kenny Pickett, Shedeur Sanders, and Dylan Gabriel. So what I view as the worst quarterback room in all of America, Joe Flacco's at the top of it, which I guess it makes sense. But honestly, you could have gone with any of the three outside of Gabriel, and I would have been like, okay, yeah, I can see the why behind it. Like whether it's you want sales or I mean, you got an old QB1, a QB2, like a legitimate QB2 in Kenny Pickett, and then your project in Shedeur. So no matter what you did, like there's going to be pain. I do like what they did at running back. I like what they did in the draft there. I think they've got some options going forward. And Jerome Ford he's a home run threat. So I think they did an okay job there. I mean, they had a horrible backfield last year, and I think that's one area where they did step up a little bit. My big problem is the O-line was one of the worst parts of their team. It was not addressed at all. Maybe in the draft a little bit, but no one that's going to make like an immediate impact where I'm like, okay, yeah, that they're going to be a game changer. There's just too many issues on the O-line for me to be like one guy's going to fix it, and that's kind of what they did. I also think the defense took a step back in terms of what they could keep, and also some potential personnel issues as the season goes. I don't know if Myles Garrett's going to be happy much longer, and because they didn't do much to address, actually getting better this year. Maybe they have a plan long term, but it doesn't look like it's happening this year. It's also bad from like a schedule perspective. They've got the second toughest schedule in football and the fifth worst when it comes to like rest disadvantages. Weeks 1 and 4 are an absolute gauntlet. Like you got the Bengals, Ravens, Packers, and Lions, like, and the Vikings after that, if you still buy into the Vikings, which I somewhat do. Like that to start the season that's horrible. Like that's an awful way to start. So like a legitimate shot at 0-5 to start just because of the comp they faced. It gets somewhat easier as the year goes on, but like at that point, maybe the damage is done. I don't think there's any question they're going to be awful, and I think by the time you get to like week 10, they're going to be awful on purpose. Over under is at 4.5 wins. I have them at 3. I think they're going to be just as bad, if not worse, than last year. I think it's the worst team in football going in. Move on to the third place team. I actually have a tie between second and third with them and the next team up. You might have seen them earlier. But I'm going to start with the Steelers because I am a little lower on them. Over and under for them is at 8.5. This team they're always like tough to gauge for me because Mike Tomlin is one of the best coaches in the history of football, and he makes them immune to certain things. So it's like the year before last, they had like a plus 16 turnover differential, and they were like, it's like 8-3 in close games, like one score games. And so it's like those are immediate signs of regression for the following year. Okay, well then the following year they had a plus 11 turnover differential, and they were like 7-3 in close games. So it's like they got a little bit worse, but like not enough. Like at the end of the day, that's a good coach that teaches good football, and so you look at like things like turnover differential and close games and the result of close games to kind of decide whether a team's going to regress or progress into the following year. This is one of the teams where it's hard to look at that because they're normally like that. They're good in close games. They are good on the turnover side of the ball. They just don't have good explosive offense. They don't have a good offense. They have an offense that somewhat takes care of the ball but does not move the ball downfield. And they have a defense that always keeps them in games. And for the most part, that formula is continuing from last year to this year. So looking at it, the plus 11 turnover differential and then the positive over 500 record in close games, and you're thinking, okay, there should be regression here, which there definitely should be. But then you look at the personnel and you look at the coaching staff and you're like, well, maybe not. 15-6 in close games over the last 2 years. I mean, it screams they're going to take a step back. But they haven't. And so most people would be like, they probably won't. I am of the adverse thinking. I actually do think this is the year that you notice the chinks in the armor. Very few changes to the team in general, outside of adding DK Metcalf instead of George Pickens. They both do the same thing. So that's more of a lateral move, in my opinion. You probably put DK a little bit above George Pickens. But to me, it's not enough to move the needle that much, not when the rest of the receiving room is what it is. And then Najee is out at running back. So like there's some turnover at running back. I don't see enough there to think that the offense will be better than it was last year. I'm fully predicting a step back. Mike Tomlin is the best coach in football when he has time to prep over the other team. This year, the Steelers rank in the bottom 4 in prep advantage and bottom 5 in rest advantage. They also have a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. The defense will definitely be fine. They normally are. Good personnel. They've got a good system. The only issue I see with the defense is they face the second best group of passing offenses this year. So they're going to have a harder time keeping scores low. And if that's the case, I don't think the offense is good enough to keep up with those high-scoring, high-octane offenses because you can slow them down, but you normally can't stop them. They generally game plan for them well. But when you face a lot of them over the course of the year and they have the second hardest schedule in terms of facing them, I don't see them scoring enough to be competitive all season. I predict they win 8 games under their over-under of 8.5, and they are not competitive in the playoff race for that long into the season. A rare occurrence in a Mike Tomlin-led Steelers team, but I've got them at 8 games, 1 and under 500, which is rare, but I'm going with it this year. Feel pretty good about it, too. We'll go to the other 8-win team. Kind of gave it away a little bit. I also have the Bengals finishing at 8 wins. Every year I want to like this team because this is a hot take. They have the best quarterback in football. Everyone's going to be like Lamar or Josh are better, and I'll make a case for Josh because he has a similar situation. But both of them have solid offensive lines, great coaching, solid run game. So they're given more. Joe Burrow has the worst O-line year in and year out, bar none, virtually no running game ever since his rookie year, and one of the worst head coaches in football, as well as a defense that gives up the most points in the league, forcing him to score 35 points a game to even compete. Nobody does more with less, which is why he gets my vote for the best quarterback in football. I think he has to put the team on his back every single year, and yes, he's got Chase. He's got T. Higgins. T. Higgins is on the field half the time. The most expensive number 2 receiver in all of football. Some of it's earned, but he's also injured a lot. And Chase gets banged up regularly because he has such a high target share. So when those guys are not on the field, which happens as you know, it happens occasionally. They rarely play 16 games. They rarely do it. So then it's just Joe, and Joe has to put the team on his back, and he continues to compete nonetheless. Um, Unfortunately, going into this year, a lot of the same problems the Bengals had last year rear their ugly head all over again. And last year they only won 8 games. So the biggest sticking point to me is they get off to a slow start every single season. It's just their identity. They're already looking at like 1-3, regardless of the competition. And looking at it, they've got Cleveland, Jacksonville, Minnesota, and Denver. So you would think 2-2 for sure, right? Like at least at Minnesota, at Denver, I think are tough because those are tough road games for sure. But then it's like at Cleveland, and in 3 of the first 4 are road games, which I think is generally tough. But it's Cleveland and Jacksonville. Neither of those teams I'm super high on. You just heard me talk about Cleveland. But they're going to lose one of those 2 games because has been their MO for the last 3 years because they have a bad coach who does not prep well. He does not game plan well. They play down to competition historically. So they're going to have a 1-3 start. One of those is going to be an upset, and maybe they probably lose the other 2 on the road because those are tough games. The offensive line will be terrible all over again. They made no changes to it. It's bad. They spent all their money on their wide receivers and Joe. So the offensive line is terrible. The defense lost 2 of its best players. So even though they have a new defensive coordinator, who I really like, the personnel does not add up to improved performance. To top it off, the Bengals face the most difficult group of run defenses all year, and they already can't run the ball, meaning Joe is going to have to put the team on his back week in and week out all over again. Out of the teams I've covered so far, they have done the worst job in addressing needs in the offseason, all in an attempt to keep their top 2 receivers happy. I get that to an extent, but when it comes at the cost of the rest of your team, you're going to get an 8-win season. You're going to get 2 happy receivers, a miserable quarterback, and an 8-win season with a bad coach. Over-unders at 9.5. I have them disappointing everyone except for myself because it's an expectation for them to only win 8 games this season. I'm a little hard on them, but I want them to be good every year, and they always let me down. So I'm going to get out in front of it this year and just leave room for disappointment. The top team in the AFC North is going to be the Baltimore Ravens. They're going to run it back. I do not have a good reason why they wouldn't. Lamar is probably the main reason. And I think the main thing is like, they won 12 games last year. They were the healthiest team in all of football last year, and they won 12 games. Okay. They had the best rest edge last year, which kind of led them to be healthy. They had a really good rest schedule, so everyone kind of like maintained their health. This year, they're going to be average in terms of rest, so I would expect them to have average health. So you got a regression in health, you got a regression in wins generally. So I still have them at 11, like 11-7, which, you know, that's a good enough team to make the playoffs. I don't see them winning 12 games. But we're splitting hairs here. Like the difference between 12 and 11 means very little when you win the AFC North by 4 games. So I still have them winning it pretty easily. I don't think they're going to deal with too much resistance on that end of it. The schedule is more difficult in terms of who they face, especially like opening up with the Bills is tough. That's at Buffalo too, so like that's a tough one to open with. I think they got the Lions early as well and the Chiefs. So like they face 3 of the top 5 teams all in the first 4 weeks, and then they got the Texans right after that, who are the cream of the AFC South. And then the Rams after that, who I have projecting to be at the top of the NFC West, which we'll get to, or we'll probably get to that. Maybe he has the same thought process. But that's really top heavy schedule. Now it gets way easier afterwards. Like they've got it's going to be like Browns, Jets, Bengals, Steelers, Bengals, which is like all are winnable, but 3 of those are like division matchups. So you know the other team is going to come to play. It's not an easy schedule. Now they're a better team than all of those other teams that I just mentioned, but facing them back to back to back is not the easiest schedule you'll face. I think that's the biggest thing holding them back from like a really like upper echelon season. Big thing for me for like a pro offensive line, Derrick Henry are both back, so good continuity. Derrick Henry, like I always think he's like a ticking time bomb for health issues, but like dude, he's just as good every year, if not better. So until he shows me he's gotten worse, I'm gonna believe in him. I wrote friendly. I meant to say unfriendly here. It's definitely unfriendly. Like they get the Browns game. That's the only one. So I meant to put that in the cons, but you guys understand where I'm getting at. So early season schedule is unfriendly. All right, so that's a con. The defense remained mostly unchanged, which means it can be exposed to certain offensive schemes, and they face much harder offenses this year, as you can see on the schedule. The other kind of like unknown is the rookie kicker. Don't know what he's gonna. Rookies are, some of them come out like, I mean, dominating, and then others really struggle. So you don't know what you're gonna get. Generally, when rookies come in, eventually they're ready to go, and kick some. But you worry about, they had Tucker for a while, and that's a big game kicker. So if they get in big games, what does that look like? If they get in those close games, those one-score games that they're like average at, do they become below average because they got a rookie kicker that's not going to seal the deal for them? So a few questions. And then they got some playoff caliber road games late, against teams like the Patriots and things of that nature. So I still think they've got more. You got Lamar, and you have the arguably the best quarterback, and then arguably the best running back in all of football, running behind a really good offensive line. Like, they are schemed up to be successful. They're going to be a good team. I don't see a 12-win season, but I see enough wins for them to maintain their stranglehold on the AFC North. And that is all I have for today. Will is going to have the NFC North tomorrow, like I said, and next week we're going to do the AFC South and the NFC South, leading us into our last week where we take care of the West. We got some football. We got week 0 coming up, so I'll probably come out with something in regards to that. I'll probably be more like ACC devoted as we go through that, but I'm sure Will come up with some stuff too, so be on the lookout for that. Make sure you have the bell rung or notifications on so you hear the bell when we get something posted and dropped out here, so you can be the first to view it. Want to make sure we keep that viewership high. You guys have been great thus far. Really been happy when we kind of changed up our cadence for how we drop these videos. The engagement's been really good too, so I'm really happy about that. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.